$400 billion. That is not the budget of a small country. That is not the annual revenue of the world's largest corporations. That is the price tag of the most ambitious and secretive partnership between two nations that the Western world never saw coming. While Washington was busy imposing sanctions, while European capitals were drafting stern diplomatic letters, while the entire Western alliance believed they had Iran cornered and isolated, something extraordinary was happening behind closed doors in Beijing and Tehran. A handshake worth $400 billion. And if you think this is just another trade deal, another economic agreement gathering dust in some diplomat's filing cabinet, then you have fundamentally misunderstood what is happening to our world right now. This is not a deal. This is a declaration of war on the existing global order. The kind of information I'm about to share with you is not discussed on mainstream news channels. It is not debated in your evening talk shows. If you find value in understanding the hidden forces that shape our world, the kind of deep analysis that cuts through the noise and reveals what is really happening, then you already know what to do. That subscribe button is right there, and hitting it means you will never miss another revelation like this one. Let me take you inside the most consequential partnership of the 21st century. On March 27, 2021, in the Grand Halls of Tehran, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif signed what they called the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. The official name sounds bureaucratic, almost boring. But the details inside this agreement would make any geopolitical analyst lose sleep. China agreed to invest $400 billion into Iran's economy over 25 years. But this was not charity. This was not aid. This was a calculated strategic maneuver that would give China something it had been seeking for decades. A permanent foothold in the heart of the Middle East. Let me break down exactly what this money is supposed to build. $280 billion is earmarked for Iran's oil, gas, and petrochemical sectors. This is not just about pumping oil out of the ground. This is about completely rebuilding Iran's energy infrastructure from the ground up. New refineries, new pipelines, new processing facilities, new storage terminals, everything Iran needs to become an energy superpower that no longer depends on Western technology or Western approval. Another $120 billion is designated for transportation and manufacturing infrastructure, high-speed railways connecting Tehran to Mashhad, the electrification of 900 kilometers of railway lines, new ports along the strategic Makran coast, upgraded highways, modern airports, smart cities equipped with Chinese technology, the complete modernization of a nation that the West believed would crumble under the weight of sanctions. But here is what the official announcements never told you. This deal includes provisions for military cooperation, joint training exercises, shared intelligence, weapons development partnerships, the construction of port facilities along the Sea of Oman, giving China strategic positioning along the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical choke points for global oil transportation. And perhaps most importantly, this deal brings Iran fully into China's Belt and Road Initiative, the multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure project that is quietly connecting Asia to Europe while bypassing everything the West has built over the past century. The timing of this agreement was no accident. When the United States withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018 and reimposed crushing sanctions, many analysts predicted Iran would have no choice but to capitulate. The sanctions were designed to strangle Iran's economy, to isolate it from the global financial system, to force it back to the negotiating table on Western terms. Iran did something unexpected, and China was waiting with open arms and a $400 billion checkbook. Chapter 1. The Shadow Economy. Now, here is where the story gets truly fascinating. If you look at official statistics, you would think China's investment in Iran has been minimal. According to one report tracking Belt and Road investments, China invested only $618 million in Iran between 2018 and 2022. China poured $22 billion into Saudi Arabia, $13 billion into Iraq, and $19 billion into the United Arab Emirates during the same period. So where is the $400 billion? The answer lies in understanding how China and Iran have built an entirely parallel economic system that operates in the shadows of the global financial order. Here is how it works. Iran sells oil to China, but not through normal channels, not through international banks, not using the US dollar. Instead, they have created what investigators have called a shadow fleet of tankers that operate outside maritime regulations. These aging vessels sail under foreign flags. They disable their tracking transponders. They spoof their GPS locations. They conduct ship-to-ship transfers in the middle of the ocean to disguise the Iranian origin of the oil. The scale is staggering. China purchases approximately 90% of Iran's oil exports. In 2024 alone, the roughly $8.4 billion in oil payments flowed through a covert network that Western authorities are only now beginning to understand. But here is the truly ingenious part. Instead of paying Iran in dollars that could be traced and frozen, oil for infrastructure, crude for construction, petroleum for projects, Chinese state-owned companies build airports in Iran, they lay railway tracks, they develop port facilities, and all of this is financed through the oil that Iran ships to China. It is a closed-loop economy that the sanctions regime was never designed to stop. The key players in this system are what analysts call, these are small, independent refineries clustered in China's Shandong province. They operate largely outside the international financial system. They receive Iranian oil, process it, and pay for it through channels that bypass every sanction the West has imposed. But what is China really getting in return? Iran sits at the crossroads of civilizations. To its north lies Russia and Central Asia, Afghanistan and Pakistan. To its west, Turkey and the gateway to Europe. To its south, the Persian Gulf and the global oil trade. For China, Iran is not just an oil supplier. A bridge that connects Chinese factories to European consumers without passing through a single ocean that the US Navy controls. A bridge that transforms China's geographical vulnerability into strategic opportunity. This is why China has signed contracts for the development of 5,000 kilometers of railway lines in Iran. This is why the Tehran-Mashhad Railway is being electrified at a cost of $2 billion. This is why China is building the Tehran-Qom-Isfahan high-speed rail line, a 400-kilometer route that will eventually extend to Shiraz and beyond. When these projects are complete, a freight train will be able to leave the manufacturing centers of eastern China, travel through Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Iran, and reach Turkish rail networks connecting to Europe, all without ever touching water that American aircraft carriers patrol. And this is what $400 billion buys. Not just oil, not just influence, a complete bypass of Western power. Chapter 2. The weapons connection. What would happen if the world's most sanctioned nation suddenly had access to the world's largest manufacturing base? This is not a hypothetical question. This is exactly what is happening right now between Iran and China. And the implications for global security are profound. Iran has developed its military capabilities under severe restrictions. Western sanctions limited access to advanced components. International arms embargoes prevented the purchase of sophisticated weapon systems. Iran was forced to build much of its military technology from scratch, reverse engineering what it could and improvising the rest. But that era is ending. Chinese components have been found in Iranian drones used throughout the Middle East. Sensors, voltage converters, semiconductors, navigation systems, quietly flowing from Chinese factories to Iranian weapons programs. And it goes far beyond components. In 2021, China granted Iran full military access to its Beidou satellite navigation system. This is China's answer to American GPS, a network of satellites that allows precision targeting anywhere on Earth. And Iran now has the keys. Iranian drones and missiles can now be guided by Chinese satellites. They can strike with precision that was previously impossible. And they can do so using a system that the United States cannot disable, cannot jam, and cannot control. The flow of military technology has accelerated dramatically. Chinese firms have supplied rocket fuel precursors to Iran. Sodium perchlorate, a key component in solid rocket fuel for missiles, has been shipped from Chinese ports to Iranian facilities. The exact substances that allow missiles to launch and drones to fly are crossing the Pacific in quantities that alarm Western intelligence agencies. These are what some call kamikaze drones, weapons that can hover over a battlefield, the same category of weapons that has proven so effective in conflicts from Ukraine to the Middle East. Air defense systems have followed. After Israeli strikes significantly degraded Iran's defenses, Chinese surface-to-air missile batteries began appearing in Iranian inventories. But why would China take such risks? China does not seek to replace America in the Middle East. A strong Iran keeps American military assets tied down in the Persian Gulf, forces Washington to spend treasure and attention on a region far from the Pacific. From Beijing's perspective, every dollar America spends containing Iran is a dollar not spent preparing for a potential conflict over Taiwan. It is a strategic investment. Chapter 3. The dollar's quiet decline. Here is something that keeps American strategists awake at night. Every barrel of Iranian oil that China purchases in yuan, every infrastructure project financed through Chinese banks instead of Western institutions, every transaction that bypasses the SWIFT system that America controls. Each one is a small crack in the foundation of American global power. Since the 1970s, the global economy has revolved around what economists call the petrodollar system. Oil is priced in dollars, traded in dollars, settled in dollars. This arrangement has given the United States extraordinary privileges: the ability to run massive deficits, the power to essentially control the plumbing of global commerce. When America sanctions a country, it cuts that country off from the dollar system. No access to American banks, no ability to trade in the world's reserve currency, no connection to the financial infrastructure that makes modern commerce possible. China and Iran are conducting trade in yuan. Payments flow through Chinese banks. Settlements occur on Chinese platforms. The dollar is nowhere to be found. This is not just about Iran. China has expanded its currency swap arrangements with over 30 countries. The cross-border interbank payment system, China's alternative to SWIFT, the yuan's share of international trade settlement is growing slowly but steadily. India is paying for Russian oil in rupees. Bangladesh paid for a Russian nuclear power plant in yuan. Saudi Arabia is considering pricing some oil sales in Chinese currency. Long pillars of the petrodollar system are hedging their bets. None of this means the dollar will collapse tomorrow. The American financial system remains dominant. What China and Iran have demonstrated is that alternatives are possible, that sanctions can be circumvented, that the dollar's monopoly is not a law of nature, but a system that can be challenged. Countries that once feared American financial power now see a path around it. Nations that would never have dared to defy Western sanctions now calculate that they might survive if they have the right partners. The invisible chains that bound the global economy to American preferences are loosening. This is the true significance of the Iran-China partnership. It is not just about $400 billion in investments. It is not just about oil and railways and weapons. It is about proving that a world beyond American hegemony is not just imaginable but actually being built, right now, in plain sight, and yet somehow invisible to most of the world. Chapter 4. The future being written. So where does all of this lead? Let me paint a picture of the world emerging from these developments. Imagine a map of Eurasia. Draw a line from the factories of Shanghai through Central Asia, through Iran, to the Persian Gulf and Turkey. This is China's vision, a connected landmass where goods, energy, talk and influence flow along routes Beijing controls. Iran is central to this vision. The Chabahar port on Iran's southeastern coast is being developed as a gateway connecting South Asia to Central Asia and beyond. The Five Nations Railway Corridor is planned to stretch over 2,000 kilometers, linking China through Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, and Iran, connecting Chinese markets to Iranian seaports. Already, freight trains travel from Yiwu in eastern China to Tehran in less than 14 days. Compare this to 45 days by sea. The Silk Road is being reborn, not as a historical memory, but as a modern economic reality. But this future is not certain. The Western powers have not been idle. The United States has assembled coalitions to counter Chinese influence. Sanctions continue to be imposed and intensified. Military cooperation with regional partners has deepened. Alternative infrastructure projects have been proposed to compete with the Belt and Road Initiative. And Iran itself faces profound internal challenges, an economy still struggling under sanctions, a population that has repeatedly shown its frustration with the current system, infrastructure projects that proceed slowly when they proceed at all. The $400 billion promise remains largely unfulfilled. Chinese investment has been cautious, limited by the very sanctions it seeks to help Iran evade. The shadow economy has limitations. Oil for infrastructure swaps cannot build everything Iran needs. Yet the trajectory is clear. China and Iran have made a strategic choice to bind their futures together, not as equals, not as allies in the traditional sense, but as partners whose interests align against a common adversary, an adversary that happens to be the most powerful nation the world has ever known. Whether this partnership succeeds or fails will shape the world your children inherit. It will determine whether the 21st century belongs to a single superpower or to a multipolar constellation of great powers, whether the rules that govern international commerce remain American in character or become something new, whether the maps we draw of influence and control look anything like the maps we grew up with. This is what is at stake in a $400 billion deal signed in Tehran. This is what is being built in the shadow of sanctions. This is the future being written while most of the world is not paying attention. Now you understand what few understand. You see what few see. The question is what you will do with this knowledge. If this analysis has opened your eyes, if you want to continue understanding the hidden forces that shape our world, then you know what you need to do. Subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to understand. Leave a comment below telling me what aspect of this partnership you find most concerning or most fascinating. And hit that notification bell because the stories I will bring you next will challenge everything you think you know about how power really works in our world. The game has changed. Will you understand the new rules before they are used against you?